Not everything is about being stressed out and burned out. Sometimes you've just outgrown your job. Sometimes it's just not tapping into enough of what you want to do. It could be the skills that you have. It could be energetically. And by energetically, I mean actual kinetic energy, your your body, your brain, the emotional, physical, mental energy that you have to give. If it's not tapping into that, then it's going to get bored. It's going to actually, in extreme situations, be an energy drain for you. Welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast, where you will get encouragement, strategies, all the things you need to love your work life. This is about transformational, strength-based coaching for career, for leadership, for life. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Let's get started. I was doing an interview once, and I think it was actually the third stage of the interviews, if I'm remembering correctly. And the interviewer, after speaking with me for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, can't remember exactly how long it was, but this person looked me straight in the eye and said, "You will be so bored with this job, I give it 6 months." And I had a really good answer for that because I needed a job. But the reality was, he was right. The industry was an industry pivot, as I have mentioned before. Every time I got laid off, I made an industry pivot. This would have been another industry pivot. All the interviews I had at the time were industry pivots, but it wasn't one that I was really super interested in. I could definitely do the job. There was no issues with that. I mean, my skills would be leveraged, my marketing skills, my presentation skills, my communication skills. It really wasn't that, but it was so interesting because this person saw something that up until that time, I don't think I was really ready to admit that. I was searching hard. I was interviewing a lot. In fact, I was on the verge of 3 offers at that time. The one I was interviewing for then and 2 others. But it got me thinking, yes, there are times when people get bored with work. Clients come to me. That's one of the reasons they want to leave their current job, is because they're bored with it. Not everything is about being stressed out and burned out. Sometimes you've just outgrown your job. Sometimes it's just not tapping into enough of what you want to do. It could be the skills that you have. It could be energetically. And by energetically, I mean actual kinetic energy, your your body, your brain, the emotional, physical, mental energy that you have to give. If it's not tapping into that, then it's going to get bored. It's going to actually, in extreme situations, be an energy drain for you. So I want you to be thinking about that as I go through these questions. Today is all about questions that you've asked, questions that clients ask me all the time when they are contemplating a career change. So I'm going to go through them. I've kind of done common questions, and I've grouped them into 4 segments that'll kind of walk you through how to navigate, how to even decide if a career transition is right for you. So the first question is about clarity. When I do a free consultation or a discovery call with somebody who is thinking about making a change, The number one question I get is, how do I figure out what I really want to do next? If I ask the question, so what are you thinking? What do you want to do? I don't know. Well, first of all, I don't know that thought. I'm not saying you are a liar, but that thought is a lie because deep down we actually do know. We're just afraid to acknowledge it. We're just afraid of failing at that thing. So don't allow yourself to indulge in an I don't know answer. But questions that you do have to answer for yourself are, how do I figure out what I really want to do next? And how can I tell whether I'm running from something or moving toward something? This is such a great question. I'm so glad to see this pop up because I actually have a podcast episode that's all about, what are you running from or are you running toward? Running from does not work. It's good to know what you don't want to do. Don't get me wrong. That's important. However, running from is oftentimes frantic, frenetic, directionless. You're just trying to get out of there. When you're running towards something, it's about a destination. You've got to figure out what your destination is. So if you're trying to figure out, what am I running? Am I running from or am I running toward? Think about what is happening. Is it just about getting away, or have you set that new destination for yourself? A really important question to ask. And just asking it is going to help you figure it out. How do you figure out what you really want to do next? I suggest a really simple exercise, and that is, get a piece of paper out. And I really do recommend handwriting this out because there is a process that just works better when we handwrite things than when we're typing. Our brains take the time to process a little bit differently and a little bit deeper. So, to answer the question, how do I figure out what I really want to do next? 3 columns. What I absolutely do not want to do, and what I do want to do, and start with the job you have. Are there things that are just not interesting to you anymore? Are there things that you just really don't want to participate in? It's okay to acknowledge that, to write it down. But then think about the things that you do want to do. Make sure you give space for that. Because something I've learned is there are some common denominators between all jobs. And your behavioral strengths, are you leveraging those? That's the key to understanding the wants and don't wants. Most of the time, what you don't want to do, it might be the job function itself, but you got to go a little bit deeper. What job functions are tapping into your natural behavioral strengths, what makes you tick as a person, and which ones aren't? Because the strengths are what you want to lean into. So here's an example. If you are someone who prefers to observe and process and not really jump in to communicate, I would call it a selective communicator, and you're in a role where every single week, you have to lead a meeting, that is not sustainable, my friends. It's just not, because it's not putting you in your strength zone of observing, of being the note taker in the room, of only communicating when you believe it's going to add value and be meaningful. So you want to pay attention to the link between what you enjoy and your strengths, what you don't enjoy and your strengths. Because if you don't enjoy it, chances are it's in friction with your strengths. Then in the middle, so you've got 3 columns. You've got, hey, I still enjoy doing this. I want to do this. Nope, do not want to participate in that. Your middle column is kind of the gray area. They might fall into either category. I'm okay with this if I don't have to do it very much, or I'm okay with this, I don't get enough of it. So think about that middle column as a gray area that you are still sifting and sorting. Some things may stay there, some things, after thinking about it for a while, you may decide, no, this is definitely in the no column, or you know what? I do want to do more of this. It's in the yes column. A really good thing to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out what you really want is what part of your current job no longer fits who you are becoming. This is key. That little prompt can help you align yourself to what you're moving forward. As I said, a lot of times jobs become boring because we've grown out of them. We're not in that season of life anymore. We're ready to move on from. I remember the moment I decided, I don't think I want to do job performance reviews anymore. I love my team, I love being a leader. But part of the admin of that is job performance reviews. And I just decided I don't think I want to do that. I think I'd rather be leading in a different way. So think about who you're becoming, areas that you've grown, ways that you are evolving, and ask yourself if your current job is fitting you anymore. Okay. The next segment is about self-doubt. So a lot of times people will say, "Yeah, I kind of have an idea of what I want, but I don't know. I feel a bit like an imposter going for something like that." I don't think that that's something that people are going to believe me that I can do it, or that you've got a certain amount of experience that actually could be leveraged that direction, but you're just not sure. So, moving past fear, moving past self doubt is about reframing it as information and then building up your confidence, building up your courage through the clarity that you just gave yourself and a small action. Maybe the small action is, I'm just going to check out LinkedIn. I'm just going to see what's available out there. Something I used to do all the time, and this was back when I was in product development. I always was doing inspiration boards, storyboards, things that would be the starting point for a new season of product development. These were physical products. So I was looking at a lot of websites, not so much competitors, but just other websites that I felt would be inspiring, like our products could sit along these other types of products. And I always check the careers page, always. Because most of the time, those were brands I admired. I wasn't necessarily looking for a job per se, but I was always curious about what kind of jobs are they hiring. If I was going to work for my favorite brand, well, what kind of jobs do they have? This is a really little action that you can do. So, the questions that get asked in this moment of moving past fear and self doubt is, how do I know when it's the right time to make a change? Listen, my friends, if you are thinking about making a change, guess what? It's time. It's time to at least start taking some actions towards that. It's time to start doing a little exploration. It's time to just update your resume so that if something drops in your lap, you have it ready to go. If you're asking yourself it's the right time, it means it's time to start looking, to start evaluating. Now, you may have to put some things in place from a monetary perspective or otherwise, but if you're thinking about it, it's time to investigate. Now, the second question along with these lines is, how do I rebuild my confidence after being in a toxic or draining job? I work with a lot of people who find themselves in this exact circumstance. I have been in that circumstance of working for a very toxic, narcissistic boss. The way you rebuild your confidence, if you're in that situation or you got laid off, but it was really toxic, and on some level, you're kind of glad you're not there anymore. The way you rebuild your confidence is to think about your accomplishments. Now, most of the time, nobody teaches us how to think about accomplishments. We don't track those things. We don't sit down on a Friday and write down all the things that we're proud of that we accomplished that week. But you know what? We should be doing it. Even I don't do it as much as I should. I do have some things that I read regularly. I read my strengths report. I read my Clifton Strengths Report, and I read my Gene Keys report. These things tell me things about myself that are empowering, that remind me who I am, that rebuild my confidence when I've hit a rough patch. You can do the same thing by writing out an accomplishment you are very proud of. Start with anything. But then look even at the toxic or draining job. There are things in there, there are some golden nuggets in there that you can absolutely be proud of. Write those out with as much detail as possible. When relive the feelings of it. How did it make you feel when you got that promotion, when you walked into that office, when you slid that new your name in that little slot on the door? Those are the things that are going to rebuild your confidence because you're reminding yourself that you do know what you're doing. You do have strengths. You do have abilities. So you have to ask yourself, what's holding you back the most? Is it fear of failure? Is it uncertainty? If it's not knowing where to start, then go back to these little tips. Believing yourself when that little voice is saying it's time to make a change, and then reminding yourself of the amazing things that you've been doing, the value that you've been accumulating throughout your career. Now, the next couple of questions have to do with making the leap. Like, okay, I know I want to. What do I do now? So, where do you even start when making a career change? Well, you know what? We've got this great tool called LinkedIn. Maybe your career change is same type of role, different industry. I did that several times. So, just start looking for that job title on LinkedIn. Don't evaluate based on an industry. Don't look for a certain kind of company yet. Just look for what other types of companies hire this kind of role. That's any type of exploration is the starting point. Now, I do really like Boolean search strings in LinkedIn in the job section. They will put in there, describe the kind of job you're looking for. If you're in the beta group, like I am, where they're trying to make it more conversational, but there's still filters in there that you can check. But start with looking for a job that leverages your transferable skills, strengths, or soft skills. So if you figured out that you are super detail oriented and that you really like to you're someone who's very methodical, then try a Boolean search string. That's just strings of keywords together separated by and in all caps or in all caps or not in all caps. If you want to eliminate things, you can leave the words just as words, or if there's a very specific word, then put it in quotations and it'll look for only that specific word. If you leave it without quotations, it'll bring up similar words. I recommend that at the very beginning of the exploration. Start there. Let yourself see what comes up when you do those broader explorations. You can also just search on AI. Go to ChatGPT, put in a prompt. What other jobs are out there that use these skills? I'm a project manager. I don't love doing project management anymore. What other jobs out there leverage project management skills? And be sure to only put in the skills that you want to do. Remember that earlier thing, the clarity? Don't put the stuff in that's on the no, I don't want to do it anymore list. Put the stuff in that's on the list that is appealing to you. Another question that often comes up is, how do I explain my career change in interviews without sounding uncertain? Well, a really good way to tackle this is right when you answer, tell me about yourself. I know it sounds a little bit weird, and I'm a huge proponent. I practice the tell me about yourself response with my clients. That's one of the first things we do. This is not a throwaway question, my friends. Another one of the podcast episodes, and it's an early one. You might actually be able to find it a little bit easier if you go to my YouTube channel, is answers to common interview questions. And the tell me about yourself is one of them. I think I also have a podcast episode that I call the interview bookends, and it's about answering how to answer tell me about yourself and how to answer why should we hire you. Those tend to be at the beginning and end. But when you answer the question, tell me about yourself, I want you to be sure to very quickly let them know that this career change is intentional. Bring up a favorite accomplishment, bring up a common thread. The formula that works really well is, what's a common thread through your career? An example of that common thread, that trait, that job function in action, and why you're interested in their role. That is automatically going to help you sound certain versus uncertain. So if you're making a little bit of a pivot, the common thread you talk about is the thread that is logical to the next thing you're going to do. Something that's always been, here's an example. Something that's always been present throughout my career as a common thread is I've always loved detail. Any job that I had, I always was going into the detail and pattern recognition and really trying to understand what, it's not just about the data, but what is the data telling us? A really good example of that is I had a project. Really, I was just supposed to provide the data, but I noticed something. And so I just made a few notes about it when I handed it off, even did a little short meeting with my boss to say, hey, I noticed a couple things and I just wanted to walk you through those. Did that. Well, it turns out that that little bit of extra information I gave really sparked a new direction for that project. The thing that I really am intrigued by with this role is that it is directly related to taking data a step further. And even though my previous roles haven't been as engaged in that as I have found I enjoy, this next move is a very conscious, intentional decision to go that direction. So you see how that just works? You, somewhere in the back of your mind, yeah, there might be a little uncertainty there. That's okay. That's normal. But when you construct your response to tell me about yourself in a way that is super duper aligned with the role you're seeking, that's where the certainty comes from. All right. Now, we've got a few more minutes here. So, how do you stay focused and inspired? This is the other couple of common questions that come up. How do I stay motivated when the process takes longer than I hoped? We've all heard about how messed up the job market is right now. And listen, that's a story. I get it. It's a very prevalent story. There's lots of people talking about that, but it doesn't have to be your story. So, how long is it supposed to take? That could be a question that you ask yourself when you're starting to feel unmotivated. Well, who said this is supposed to go fast or slow or whatever? You just have to give yourself space to find the motivation out from inside yourself instead of outside yourself. It's really important to know that the stories that other people are telling don't have to be your story. And every day is a new day. The process is the process. And saying it's taking longer is a story that you are telling yourself. What if it's taking exactly as long as it's supposed to take? Sometimes you have to have a little conversation with yourself. If your brain is telling you this is taking too long, then just go back at it with, that's interesting. How long is it supposed to take? Counter your own thoughts with new ones that serve you better. Your counter is always a thought that feels better. And let me let you in on a little secret. When you have a thought that feels bad, it drains you, it has a heavy feeling. The reason it doesn't feel good is because it's not true. Just ponder that for a minute. What if that was actually the case? The thoughts that feel bad, the reason they feel bad is because it's not a true statement. What if instead of why is this taking so long, you were to say to yourself, it takes as long as it takes? That's certainly more neutral. You could also say, my next thing could happen any day now. You see the difference between it takes as long as it takes, that's neutral. That's better than negative, for sure. That's one of those first couple stages where we get our power back. But if you were to say, you know what, things can change in an instant, and I have lots of examples of how that's happened in my life. That's how you stay motivated. You get intentional about sifting and sorting through your thoughts and picking the thoughts that feel better. Another important thing about staying focused and inspired is getting help. My friends, this is exactly what coaching is about. I always say that you can't have career coaching without a little bit of life coaching. That's just the way it is. I have met with clients, and our intention was to do interview prep, but you know what? They had a bad day. They had a day where they felt defeated. And so instead of interview prep, we worked on their brain. We did some emotion regulation. We looked at what is real, and real is always leans in the direction of positive. So, where do we go from here? Well, hopefully, if you're not already following me on LinkedIn, please do follow. DM me. Let me know how it's going. I have a virtual coffee link right there on my profile in the featured section. Schedule a virtual coffee. I do not sell on virtual coffees. They're 20-minute meetings. What I do is get to the heart of your problem. And I'm telling you, my friends, we can get a lot done in 20 minutes where you leave and you feel empowered to move forward. But you might be at the stage where I'm ready. I remember at one point in my career, in knowing what I wanted, the thought I was telling myself was, I am not messing around anymore. I'm getting the help I need. I'm getting coached. I'm getting this, whatever it is for you. If any of this resonates, maybe you're at the stage where you say, you know what, I'm not messing around anymore. Because every investment you make in yourself is always worth it. That is a beautiful thought to adopt here. I never waste money on myself. Anything I invest myself always gets an ROI. Whatever you spend with coaching, When you work with me, I promise you, I will set you up so that you never have to work with me again. I know that sounds crazy. And I do have clients that come back because they've grown and they're ready for more. But my goal is always to set you up so that you don't need to come back, that you've got the tools you need to make any change you want to and to manage your own brain so that you know exactly what to do and how to make it happen. All right, my friends, I'll talk to you later. If you like listening to this podcast, I invite you to visit the Love Your Work Life website at elissashuck-careercoach.com. On the site, you're going to find free resources and information about all of my coaching programs, everything you need to land a great job, advance your career, and lead and build an awesome team. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn.